Why do the innocent suffer? It's probably one of the most painful questions humanity has ever asked, right? It's the kind of thing that can shake your faith to its core, that makes you question the very fairness of the world. Well, today, we're going to dig into a really profound answer to this question, one that basically suggests, hey, what if you've been asking the wrong question all along? So this is the question, right? Straight up. How do you allow the innocent to suffer? And it's not just a question, is it? It's more like a plea. You can feel the pain in it. It's aimed right at the heavens, demanding an explanation. I mean, this is where all our confusion and heartache comes from, when we see a child get sick or a genuinely good person just gets hit with one bad thing after another. You just have to ask, how can a just universe possibly let this happen? Okay, and right here, this is where everything gets turned on its head. The answer that we're going to explore is pretty radical. It starts by saying the question itself is built on a massive misunderstanding. So to get to the real answer, we first have to figure out why we've been asking the wrong thing from the get-go. All right, so let's dive right in. The wrong question. Why is this question, which feels so real, so deeply human, why is it supposedly flawed at its very core? Well, it all comes down to the lens we're using to look at the universe. So here's the breakdown of the problem. It all starts with our very human-centered, kind of ego-driven point of view. We just naturally assume the universe should play by our rules, Rules like guilt and injustice. We take our own human ideas of what's fair and we project them onto God or the universe. But, and this is the big but, what if those categories, as real as they feel to us, just don't exist in the grand scheme of things? What if they're not part of the universe's operating system? And that brings us to what might be the biggest misconception of all, this idea of God, the one we've basically created in our own image. To get to what's real, according to this teaching, we have to first take apart the myth. Just look at the difference here. On one side, you have the myth, a God that feels and thinks like a human, one who judges, who punishes. But on the other side, you have the reality presented here, something totally impersonal. It doesn't think, it doesn't punish, because that's just not in its nature. It operates on a level that's completely beyond our human ideas of right and wrong. It's a principle, not a person. And this quote is, wow, it's a zinger, right? Atheists manage to criticize that which doesn't actually exist. What a powerful idea. From this viewpoint, a lot of the arguments against God have been aimed at that man-made projection, the God in the myth column. The critics were basically winning a debate against an idea that, according to this teaching, wasn't real in the first place. So, okay, if there's no cosmic judge pulling the strings, then what is running the show? This way of thinking points to these fundamental, impersonal laws. Think of them like gravity. They just are. And let's get into the most important one. And here it is, the law of harmony and equilibrium. Now, try not to think of this as some moral rule, like be good. Think of it more like a law of physics, but for existence itself. The idea is that the whole universe, from giant galaxies all the way down to the cells in our bodies, is always trying to find balance. It's constantly seeking this state of perfect coordinated harmony. And here's the key. Whenever something goes out of sync with that harmony, the system just naturally tries to correct itself. It's not a punishment. There's no angry God involved. It's just an automatic consequence. It's like a boat rocking in choppy water. The waves aren't trying to punish the boat. The instability itself creates this pressure that forces it back towards being level. It's just physics. Okay, so what does this mean for suffering? If it's not a punishment, then what in the world is it? Well, according to this, it's actually a signal. It's a form of communication. This really changes everything, doesn't it? What we've been calling punishment or injustice is actually just the environment's totally neutral response to the disharmony we create. And that disharmony can come from our actions, our state of mind, even our thoughts. It's pure, simple cause and effect. Let's walk through how this works, step by step. First, there's a deviation from harmony. Something is out of whack. This creates dissonance. It's like one instrument in an orchestra playing a totally wrong note. It just clashes. Then, the law of equilibrium kicks in with a response to try and fix that imbalance. And finally, we experience that corrective pressure as a signal. And that signal is what we call suffering, or illness, or hardship. See? It's the result, not the original intention. And this next analogy is just perfect. Think about physical pain. When you accidentally touch a hot stove, that searing pain isn't the stove being mean to you, right? Of course not. It's a critical signal from your nerves, screaming, "Get your hand off of there, something is very wrong." Well, suffering, in this view, is basically the universe's version of that exact same signal. It's not a punishment, it's a warning. And this brings us right back to that original, painful question about the innocent. Because this law of harmony, it's totally impartial, it's blind. It doesn't care about our human labels. It doesn't see age or gender or whether we think someone is a good person or a bad person. Children, the elderly, none of it matters to the law. The only thing that registers is the structural impact, the level of harmony or disharmony an individual is creating. So the takeaway here is huge. To really get this, to really understand this framework, it requires a massive shift in our own perspective. It basically requires us, as a species, to finally grow up spiritually. This teaching diagnoses our current spiritual state as being stuck in a childish perception. Think about it. We tend to look for a cosmic parent figure, God, to protect us, to reward us, to give us what we want. And when things don't go our way, just like a little kid, we throw a tantrum, we blame, we get resentful, and we scream that it's not fair. And the message is pretty blunt. If we're ever going to evolve, this historical period of spiritual childhood, this whole cycle of dependency and blame, it just has to end. It is time to mature. And this chart just lays it all out, side by side. The childish perception is always looking for someone to blame. It's always asking, why is this happening to me? But spiritual maturity, it accepts personal responsibility. It asks a totally different question. What is this signal trying to tell me? You move from expecting rewards to understanding that results come from effort. It's a complete shift from seeing a world full of injustice and guilt to seeing a world of simple cause and effect. And here's the end game of that shift. For someone who is spiritually mature, there are no guilty parties and there is no injustice. Those concepts, they just dissolve. They're replaced by a totally new understanding of harmony, disharmony, and taking responsibility for your own state of being. So, that leaves us with one last really challenging question to chew on. If suffering isn't some cosmic injustice being forced on us, but is instead a signal about our own disharmony, well, then the power to change things doesn't belong to some distant God. The universe isn't broken. The power and the responsibility is entirely with us. The real question is, are we ready to accept that?